Every single day, millions of Roblox players decide whether a game deserves a like or a dislike. Some games are loved by almost everyone, while others are rated so badly that almost nobody recommends playing them. But here's the thing, what if those ratings are completely wrong? Today, I'm testing Roblox's worst rated games to find out if they actually deserve all the hate, or if players have been judging them way too harshly. By the end of this video, every game will get my final verdict, like or dislike. So, do these games actually deserve their terrible ratings? Let's find out. Terrible rating. One game definitely didn't, which meant this next game could go either way. This game is called Obby But You're a Ball, and just like the first game, it has a 35% like ratio. Now, at first glance, this just looked like a normal Obby, except you're a ball. I honestly thought, how different could it be? Well, about 30 seconds later, I completely regretted saying that. The movement in this game is interesting, and by interesting, I mean completely out of control. Since you're a ball, you're constantly rolling around, which makes even the easiest jumps feel 10 times harder. I kept telling myself, okay, next jump, I've got this. I did not have this. I tried again, failed. One more time, failed again. Yeah, this wasn't going very well. Then the game gives you a double jump. At first I thought, finally, something that will actually help me. Nope, instead of saving me, it usually launched me even further off the map. Whoever designed this ability definitely enjoys watching people suffer. After a while, I started getting used to the movement, or at least that's what I thought. Every time I felt confident, the game humbled me immediately. I'd line up the jump perfectly, miss, I'd go a little slower, miss, I'd double jump, miss again. At this point, I wasn't even fighting the obstacle anymore. I was fighting the ball. The farther you go, the harder every stage becomes. There are 120 stages. I managed to make it all the way to stage 62. Honestly, I was pretty proud of myself until I realized those stages are still considered the easy ones. You're telling me I struggled all that time and I'm not even halfway through the easy mode? Yeah, there's absolutely no chance I'm beating this game. There are actually 5 more difficulty modes after that. 5. If this is what the easy stages look like, I don't even want to imagine the hardest ones. Whoever completed all 120 stages, I have one question. Are you okay? There was one level that almost made me quit. All I had to do was roll across a tiny platform. Sounds easy, except you're a ball. I'd move a tiny bit too far. Fail. Too little. Fail. Double jump. Fail. Respawn. Try again. Fail. Again. Fail. At one point, I genuinely started blaming the ball instead of myself. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe the ball was. Honestly, I'm still blaming the ball. Now, I'll give this game some credit. If you enjoy really difficult games, you'll probably love it. The challenge is definitely there. It just wasn't the type of challenge I enjoy. For me, it felt frustrating much more often than it felt rewarding. So, does Obby But You're a Ball deserve its 35% rating? Honestly, yeah. I think this rating is fair. The idea is really creative, but the movement makes the game much harder than it needs to be. Some people will enjoy that. I definitely didn't. So, I'm giving Obby But You're a Ball a dislike. 3 games in, and the ratings were starting to make a lot more sense. But the next game looked very familiar. The second I joined, I thought, wait a minute, I've definitely played something like this before. The question was, could Roblox actually compete with Agard.io, or was this just another bad copy? 3 games in, and things were starting to make sense. Some games deserved their terrible ratings, others definitely didn't. But then I loaded into the next game, and within the first 10 seconds, I had a feeling I'd played this before. This game is called Blob Eating Simulator, and just like a few of the other games, it only has a 35% like ratio. The second I joined, I immediately thought, wait a minute, this is basically Agard.io, except it's Roblox. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Agard.io was a really fun game, so if this was Roblox's version, maybe it'd be just as good. At least, that's what I hope. The goal is really simple. Eat the small blobs around the map, grow bigger, and try to become the biggest blob in the server. The bigger you get, the stronger you become. So naturally, I started eating everything I could find. After a while, I noticed something interesting. Almost all all the blobs were spawning right in the middle of the map, which meant if you were the biggest player, you almost had to defend the center, because if someone else got control of it, they could grow incredibly fast. I actually thought that was a pretty cool idea. It gave everyone something to fight over, instead of just wandering around the map. But then, the more I played, the more one big problem became obvious. It felt empty. I kept waiting for the game to introduce another mechanic. Maybe I'd unlock a new ability. Maybe there'd be different game modes. Maybe there'd be boss blobs. Something. Anything. But nothing happened. If you've ever played Agar.io, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. One of the best parts of Agar.io is splitting, feeding other players, making risky plays, trying to outsmart people. This game doesn't have any of that. You just eat blobs, get bigger, repeat. After about 10 minutes, I realized I'd already seen everything. There wasn't anything new to unlock, no new mechanics, no surprises, just more blobs. I honestly kept hoping the game would suddenly get more interesting, but it never did. Now, I don't think this game is terrible. It's just really boring. If you've never played Agar.io before, you might enjoy it for a little while, but if you have, this just feels like a much simpler version without the mechanics that made Agar.io fun in the first place. So, does Blob Eating Simulator deserve its 35% rating? Honestly, yeah, I think it does. The idea is fine, but after a few minutes, it becomes really repetitive, and I just didn't have a reason to keep playing. So, I'm giving Blob Eating Simulator a dislike. At this point, only one game had actually surprised me. Everything else pretty much deserved its rating. There was only one game left, and honestly, it sounded so simple that I thought there was no way it could be frustrating. The objective? Park a car. How hard could that possibly be? There was only one game left, and honestly, this one looked way too simple to be bad. It's called Park the Car, and just like the last few games, it only has a 35% ratio. Now, the objective couldn't be easier. Drive your car and park it in the highlighted parking spot. That's it. No zombies, no monsters, no impossible obby, just parking. So I thought this should be easy. Yeah, I was very wrong. The first few levels actually weren't that bad. I managed to park the car without too many problems, and I started thinking maybe this is another game that got rated too harshly, but then the game started getting harder. The roads became narrower, there were more parked cars, more obstacles, and way less room for mistakes. One thing I actually liked is that you can unlock 3 different cars. It gives you something to work towards instead of just finishing levels. Every level also has a 3-star system. If you're quick, you get all 3 stars, but if you take too long, you start losing them. So now, you're not only trying to park perfectly, you're racing against the clock as well. Then, I discovered the biggest problem with this game, the hitboxes. They're ridiculous. You barely touch another car, crash. You lightly brush a wall, crash. You breathe near another object, probably a crash. I genuinely had moments where I just sat there, looking at my screen, wondering how that counted. After a while, it stopped feeling difficult. It just felt unfair. Instead of learning from my mistakes, I was restarting because of tiny little touches that shouldn't have counted as crashes. And that got frustrating really quickly. Now, I will say this, the idea itself is actually pretty fun. If the hitboxes were more forgiving, I'd probably enjoy this game a lot more. But right now, it feels more like a rage game than a parking game. So, does Park the Car deserve its 35% rating? Honestly, yeah. I think the players got this one right. The idea is good, but the hitboxes completely ruin the game. So, I'm giving Park the Car a dislike. Well, that's every game tested, and honestly, I was pretty surprised by the results. Going into this video, I expected every single game to be terrible, but that wasn't the case. Most of them absolutely deserved their terrible ratings. Games like The Deepest Pool, Blob Eating Simulator, and Park the Car made it pretty easy to understand why so many players disliked them. But one game completely surprised me. Obby, But You Have Bones actually had the lowest rating out of every game I tested, yet it ended up being my favorite. If anything, it's proof that you shouldn't judge every Roblox game by its rating alone. Sometimes the community gets it completely right, and sometimes a genuinely fun game slips through the cracks. So now, I want to hear what you think. Which game deserved its rating the most? And was there a game that you think deserved a second chance? Let me know down in the comments. I read as many of them as I can. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and if you're new here, subscribe, because I've got plenty more Roblox Roblox videos coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.